Kenny here with Gardening Simplified. It's August 28th, and today we're going to talk about planting onions. So let's get into it here. Okay. Uh, Now, whenever I plant onions, I like to uh, use a cell tray that's got plenty of depth to it, and I've got your standard uh, transplants come in little cell trays like this. Now, I like to use these ones. You can see how much deeper this is. Onions have a deep root system to them. They need a little more room. I used to plant them in the smaller trays, but they didn't do so good. So I went to this one. And what I do is pre-moisten the soil. Now the fan's running in here, so it's dry at the top just a little bit, which won't hurt. Then I use something to compress this just a little bit. I push it down about a 1/4 inch. And that's what I'll use for a base for my seeds. Before we start planting, we'll get we'll get things ready here. I'm planting it's a 1015Y. This is a Texas grano. This 1015Y, we call it noonday onion. It's a really sweet onion, and I like to use a little planter, and I'm just going to put some seeds in it here. Got a pretty good bit, and then I'm going to put my little cover on. Now I don't necessarily need a little hole. Because I just tap these and go out. But I want to stress the fact, if you're going to plant onions, don't use old seed, because onion seeds lose their viability as far as germination real quick. I'm going to say it's somewhere around 25 to 50% drop that first year, and then it just goes down from there. So a lot of times you have old seeds, and I tried some in the experiment on one of my older videos, and definitely none of them germinated, and they were some old seeds that were just set out. But these are actually 2021, so they should germinate fine. I do have some fresher ones, but they were germ tested it's been almost 2 years ago, not quite 2 years ago. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to bring these out, and I'm going to put a fair amount in each one of these trays, because I don't know how well these are going to germinate. Like I say, they are older seed. And when you plant seed, and it depends on your location, down here in the south where we're at, actual prime time to start onion seeds is the 1st of September, and so we're just a few days off, or the first week in September, first and second week. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and plant these now. I planted them a little early last year, and when it got really cold, I think down to 9 degrees, and even though I had everything covered, most of my onions died. And of course we had 40-mile-an-hour winds, which affected my roll cover fabric. It's got a certain amount of breathability to it, so the air got in behind, and it shouldn't have killed the onions, but something with the nature of the weather, and I'm going to say it's manipulated that way, but something with the nature of it, it killed it. Actually, the ones that were planted the earliest, that were the largest at that time, they froze back to the ground, and a lot of times when they come back in 2 or 3 different onions from that bulb that was there, and so they didn't do so well. But the ones that were planted later, that were younger, they fared good through it. We did have some loss, but it wasn't as much loss as by far as the big ones. We lost a big percentage of the big ones. But anyway, this is the way we plant it. Now I'm getting rid of the rest of these seeds and put them in there. And I have some other varieties to plant. And alliums, the same thing about leek. Now these seeds here are from 2021 too. These were some I saved. You can see a lot of little pieces in there. I don't worry about those because whenever I plant them, I just plant that too. It's not like I'm selling seeds. But once we get these all on here, what we're going to do is we're going to cover these with perlite. Now this is the one thing that I grow that does real good. Now a lot of people cover all their seeds with perlite. Perlite will hold moisture in, but it'll also it lets them germinate through it easier than potting mix or seed starter or something like that. It just does a whole lot better to get these seeds out of the ground. Now normally onion seeds that are good and viable, they germinate in 3, 4, maybe 5 days. They germinate relatively quickly. In fact, they could come up if they're nice and new. They could actually come up quicker than that. But like I say, this is just an easy thing. It's easy way to do this. It kind of keeps the fungal gnat situation a little bit lower too. Now this potting mix that I'm using, this is my mind don't even work now. It's Flex, but it's comes out of Canada. It's a they call it Flex because it's flexible. You can use it for all kinds of things as far as potting mix. But it's basically mostly peat moss and perlite, and it works good for germination. It's not I wouldn't say it's the best. Now after I put those in here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my little hose siphon out of my jug, and I'm going to water these down. Now I want to water them in good, and the reason why I say I use pre-moistened potting mix, and you can go back to a video way back some years back where I planted tomatoes and I didn't do it. I just said, well, I'm just going to set the things in a tray, full of water, let it soak it up, and I left them there for a day, and then I overhead watered. They still wouldn't take water. It was so hydrophobic that what happened was the tomato plants didn't do good at all. And ever since then, I say make sure you pre-moisten. Now a lot of content providers will tell you that. But as far as planting onions, I heard somebody say, I don't grow mine from seed anymore. I had someone come up and tell me, because the problem with when I grew them from seed, the roots were too long. Well, golly, I wouldn't want those long roots. But if you don't like the long roots, when you take these out, take you some scissors and cut them a little shorter. But those long roots, and it does take a little bit more to try to get a lot of them underground, but if you don't get them all underground, the ones that you do get there will do fine. But they don't have to wait like your store-bought ones where you have no roots and then it takes it a while before they take off. I'll plant these when they're really small, and you can go back and hunt for videos, and I might probably do another one just as a reminder for people to whenever they do get ready to plant. But anyway, this is almost all it is to it. The only other thing I got to do is make me a tag. Whoops. I got a situation here. Let me move this tray. It looked like I forgot to put my bottom tray up underneath there. And that happens to me more often than I'd like. But anyway, make sure you take and write the variety, write the date on here, and tag these out. That way you'll know, because when these onions come up, you are not going to know what's what. Now you might, once they get bigger, you'll be able to tell a red one from the others, but it'll be hard to tell a white one or a yellow one from each other because they're so close together. But anyway, I hope this serves a reminder. I thank you for watching. Now, some of you that's up north, and a little bit up north, you can plant fall onions too. But when you get into the colder ones, you always grow them in the spring. But it takes an onion this time of year 6 to 8 weeks to get up to transplant size. In the spring, when you plant them, it's going to take you 8 to 10 weeks to get up to transplant size. So just figure this from the time you want to put them in. Okay, I'm going to cut in here just to mention whenever you start sprouting your own or growing your own onions from seed. Now, I do put a dome over it, keep the moisture in. There's no reason to have to water it once you initially water it, if you water it good. But I want to take and tell you that you don't want, now my light stays on 24/7 for a lot of these this time of year. That way I can take them out in this real hard sun really quick. But you don't want that on your onions, because whether you're up north or you're down south, onions are day length sensitive. And down in the south we grow short day. You know, middle of the country will grow day neutral, and up north will grow long day onions because their daylight is at different lengths. Down here in the south, ours is not as long as up there in the north. It's easy to tell that. But what I want to say is, if you leave your grow lights on for a long time, you're going to entice these seeds to thinking it's a long day, or it's a longer day than it actually is, and your seeds will start turning to bulb way too early. And that's what happens when you plant your seeds late in the season, and if the day's already getting long, they'll start to bulbing before you even get them out of your container. So be aware of that. And one other thing I want to mention is, now I have these onions, and back when we harvested onions, we had a bunch of these little bulbs. Now these bulbs, most of them are viable. There's probably a few. This little one here doesn't feel like it's got anything in it, but most of them are good and viable. I put them in a onion sack that's got plenty of ventilation. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put these out. Now, they've already started to bulb, but these bulbs will grow a green top, and they'll make good green onions. Some of them will be hotter, like I think some of the white varieties that I have, because I have two different ones. One's sweet, one's hotter. My yellow ones are all sweet, and then I have a few reds in there. They'll be a little bit spicy. But anyway, if you have small ones, when you harvest yours in the late spring or early summer, take and put them in a bag. These have just been hanging out. Of course, it's been pretty hot in the shop, but they do good to survive through this heat. You know, even though we've had temperatures up to 109, and I'm sure in my shop it's got higher than that. They've really done good, and all these are viable to put out. So don't think that you got to waste, or you're not harvesting these little ones or something like that, because even though these won't make big bulbs, these will make good green onions or table onions. But anyway, I figured I'd slip that in. If you want to see more of my content, well, just hit that subscribe, hit the bell, and select all so you'll get notified. And give it a big thumbs up and share this video. It helps my channel. Get out there and garden.